Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show with SportsbookReview.com. I am your host, Lee Martin, joined today by my favorite crew. We got SBR's UFC expert, David Mannon, and MMA Mania's lead host, Matt Ryan. Today, we are breaking down the entire main card for UFC Vegas 28, Rozenstruik versus Sakai, and it feels so great to be back. I'm telling you, whenever we have these weeks off, I feel like I'm gone for years. It has been so long. But we are back for this June 5th on this Saturday. Before we get into our main card breakdown, we're just going to recap our previous fight from 2 weeks ago at UFC Vegas 27, Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. And let me tell you, I was, again, disappointed over the weekend. So I recalibrated on our time off. We're back. But I just want to hear how your guys' weekend went. Dave, I'll begin with you for your recap for UFC Vegas 27.
That was so long ago. I thought we could just forget about that card. I thought we could just breeze past and not talk about that one.
Right.
Nah, it was a good card, you know. The early prelims and the preliminary fights, it was going great. I mean, I had a strong lean on Ismagulov and David Dvorak. And then the main card came and it seemed to go a bit downhill. I didn't expect Carla Esparza to pull through with that wrestling chops, and I should probably take my own advice when I say that wrestling wins fights, because boy, it really does. And fair play to her, she dominated and even got the knockout as well, which I was impressed by. And then obviously the main event, Cody Garbrandt just could not keep up with Rod Font. He could not keep up with him at all. He seemed to tire earlier than I expected to, and yeah, that 25-minute war, it just was not going in Cody Garbrandt's favor whatsoever. But you know, it's still young. There's still plenty of miles left on the clock, so we'll see where he goes from here. But Rod Font, I think the only way is up now. He needs some serious competition and maybe, you know, a title shot after another win.
Definitely. Well, how about you, Matt? How did your 2 Saturdays ago go? Oh, it appears we have no sound from you, Matt.
We go because I have my headphones, so I can hear you guys. Now I can. Win some, lose some, fall down a flight of stairs. Everything's all right in the end. You know, just living life. The Garbrandt fight, it kind of was what we expected. Like, I think Garbrandt maybe post-peak. I think Dave disagrees with me voraciously. But I think that this is a situation where we're seeing that generation of UFC fighters from the 2010s start to see that dip. That conversation's been had about Conor McGregor already. You know, a lot of these guys, they're nearing the age. We don't know what this generation is going to look like because they fought so fast, they fought so consistently, and the number of injuries to some of the top performers in the UFC that we've seen over the past few years, that's going to start affecting their longevity, their ability to stay on top, and their ability to stay consistent. And we're seeing a lot of these young fighters, especially some of them on the card tonight for this Saturday, looking to take that top spot. So that's the interesting thing to me, is how is Garbrandt an outlier for some of these bigger name veterans, or is this a part of a bigger pattern?
Yeah, I guess we'll see. And honestly, this upcoming weekend, I feel like the card, it's not that bad of a card. We got a lot of good fights to look forward to, especially the first fight on the main card. So let's just get our main card breakdown started. For the first fight, I have been drinking a lot of coffee this morning. So you know my love for coffee. Anyway, so we have middleweight Tom Breese versus Antonio Arroyo. This is going to be a great fight. We got Tom Breese at -250 and Arroyo at +210. Dave, I'm going to begin with you for your breakdown and pick for this first fight.
Yay. Back to England. Hey, look, do we even need me to break this down? We already know where this one's going. No, but seriously, Tom Breese is one of them guys. Over the years, there's been a lot of smack talk regarding English fighters and, you know, their ability to wrestle. But, you know, these young studs like Tom Breese, they're a part of the new generation. And he began wrestling and jiu-jitsu at age 16. He was a junior national freestyle wrestling champion. He finished second in the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation Championships as well. And, you know, at that point of his BJJ career, he was only a purple belt. He now owns the important one, which is that coveted black belt. Before the UFC fought in Bama, and he won majority of his fights prior to joining the UFC via submission. He's good, and he's good everywhere, and that's what I like about Tom Breese. Not just because he's English. I'm not, you know, overly supporting him in here, but his first two fights in the UFC, they were stopped due to strikes. Whilst everyone was heavy on that jiu-jitsu side, he proved that he can box as well. And for me, I like his boxing. I really do like his boxing. And age 29, this kid is still learning, still progressing, still gaining that all-important experience at the highest level. Now, last time out, he fought a guy who can wrestle better. That's the problem. Akhmedov, he really had that grappling prowess tested by the Russian. Losing to Top Control almost instantly into the fight. And I can't be too tough on Breese because Akhmedov is a brute. And, you know, Tommy Boy only had a quick warm-up versus KB Buller prior to a long layoff with health concerns. And a lot of that was down to mental health. So it's good to see Breese back on it on a regular basis. He was just outmatched against Akhmedov on the ground. He still does threaten, even if he is going to lose these wrestling battles. Like he threatened the guillotine, he threatened the rear naked choke. What else? He got a heel hook as well in that fight. Now, in fact, all of them submissions, they were close. But, you know, Akhmedov is a brute. He is strong, and he was able to fight Breese off. Second round, you know, Breese put himself in a compromised position. He attempted a calf slicer where, you know, it was bad. So much grappling from that first round. He just looked exhausted, and Akhmedov strangled him, unfortunately, with an arm triangle. Now, the level of competition has certainly dropped here, in my opinion. This leads us to Antonio Arroyo, who is 0-2 in the UFC, 9-4 overall in his professional career. The experience here for me is just screaming in favor of Breese. You know, both men are experienced jiu-jitsu practitioners, but I have to side with Breese in both striking and grappling areas of the fight. And to be honest, I'd rather see him stand behind that beautiful popping jab that is utilized during a lot of his career when he's been in the stand-up, rather than, you know, just risk that grappling, which can be a bit iffy. I mean, he's good at grappling, but, you know, he's coming up against a guy who is a black belt. So I wouldn't like to see him get in one of those compromised positions like he did with Akhmedov and end up getting subbed again. I think the boxing fundamentals for Breese, he has got them, and he utilizes them very well. And that's why I do get annoyed when he does tend to grapple against guys where he shouldn't have to. He needs to recognize when he's holding that stronger striking offense, just like he did versus KB Buller. From that the southpaw stance, he's so light on his feet, especially for a middleweight, and he cracks those jabs from both sides. I want to see him land those straights, just like he did in the Buller scrap against Arroyo this weekend. And look, he dropped Buller with a jab as well. And how often can you say somebody gets dropped with a jab? That's a rare occurrence. So Breese has the speed, in my opinion. He has the power advantage, in my opinion. And look, yeah, he's local to me, 20 minutes around the corner. Again, this is not a pick based on his location. Although I do have to favor him, and I favor him quite heavily. I think this style of fight is perfect. Arroyo, he hasn't really provided us with much outside of that Dana White Contender Series finish. Obviously, I mentioned he's a dangerous black belt, but this is black belt versus black belt. I sense a striking battle coming out of that, like we often see. Arroyo just doesn't strike me as a fearsome fighter. Do you know what I mean? It's not good. And when he fought against Andre Muniz, there was a point in the fight where he got low blowed, and it wasn't even a low blow, and the guy was looking real tired. And it was like, are you really faking the low shot in the first round to catch a bit of wind? Because I just wasn't really impressed with that. And then Arroyo for Deron Win. And Deron Win was able to break his 3-fight losing skid against Arroyo. And this, in reality, is the lower level of UFC opposition that Arroyo is facing, and he is failing at every hurdle. So, for Arroyo's dangerous BJJ offense, his wrestling defense is poor. He cannot prevent singles, doubles, body lock, nothing. I think we could see Breese outstrike him or even wrestle him, even though I don't want him to. Prefer to see him strike. I think Breese has got this everywhere. And I feel like Arroyo is going to tire. He's going to be gassed, and he's going to give up his back maybe after a couple strikes that will drop him. And we'll see Tom Breese get this one done inside the distance and get back on track.
All right, you literally just answered my question, because I was going to ask you, do you like Tom Breese inside the distance? Because that's what I like, and I got Tom Breese for the MMA props at BetOnline for plus 110, so there's value there, because right now he is minus 250, so might as well go for the MMA props. But how about you, Matt? What is your breakdown and pick for this next fight, or for this fight?
Well, yeah, so basically Dave had all of my notes and said them all, but because that's just how good Dave is. Dave breaks things down to a molecular level. When it comes to this, all of Arroyo's losses prior to the UFC were by submission. So the deeper this fight goes, Dave said it, he gets gassed quick, and he's going to be a guy who may not be able to recover. And also, for people who fade UK wrestlers, I'd like you to look up Billy Robinson and then kindly go screw. But it's got to be Tom Breese here. Even though that lost to Akhmedov back in January, I feel like that might be an outlier, but there's a bigger problem. He's 3-3 in his last 6. Started his career 10-0 with a 3-fight winning streak inside the octagon. But in 3 of his 8 UFC fights, Breese has gotten the performance of the night bonus. I think he's looking to get back on track, look to get that bonus money, and look to assert himself in a very crowded middleweight division. I see Tom Breese winning. I do see it inside the distance, though. Breese is 1-1 going to the distance as a pro, so I think it's a toss-up. I think Breese gets the stoppage. Even though he'll probably pull it off in a decision as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, well, if you guys do want to get in on this fight, again, via BetOnline, Tom Breese is minus 250 and Antonio Arroyo is plus 210. But let's move on to the next fight. We have middleweight Dusko Todorovic. I've not seen his name in so long. Versus Gregory Rodrigues. Via BetOnline, Todorovic is minus 134 and Rodrigues is plus 114. Matt, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this next fight.
All right, so we have to shout out that Gregory Rodrigues' nickname is RoboCop.
Yeah.
His nickname is RoboCop. It's not Crow Cop level of cool, but it's up there. This is his UFC debut. He has a 2-fight knockout streak in the LFA, but he got knocked out in the Contender Series by Jordan Williams last September and got stopped in his pro debut. So he may not have a chin on him, and he's going up against a guy in Todorovic who got dusted by Punale and Soriano at UFC on ABC 1, and that was in the first round, so that's not great for him. But he won his UFC debut with a stoppage win against Daquan Townsend back in October, and has not been to a decision with the exception of his appearance on the Contender Series against Teddy Ash in, I believe, 2019. He's knocked out 6 of his opponents, submitted 3. So for Rodrigues, he's walking into a really tough situation against a guy who's aiming for a knockout and a bounce-back win. I think we're going to see a lot of aggression from Todorovic. I think he's going to get the stop, but it's all on Rodrigues' chin, and I don't trust it.
All right. Well, how about you, Dave? Do you have a different breakdown than pick than Matt?
No, I'm going the same way. Look,
Yeah.
I've been on Todorovic since the beginning. The guy is really good, and he was one of my favorite prospects. And then Soriano came in, and just the brute power of that guy, Todorovic, I think wasn't expecting that, and he couldn't really handle it. But it's still early in his career. He's still one of the freshest prospects, in my opinion. He's only 26 years old. I think he can definitely get back on track after suffering, it's his first professional loss. And, he's still one of the only guys that has knocked out Michel Pereira, which is something, and that was prior to the UFC. And given Pereira's success that he's had in the UFC, that's Todorovic's most significant win to date, even through his Dana White Contender Series win and his ground and pound stoppage over Dequan Townsend. Speaking of which, that debut, that was real impressive. And he closed as a heavy favorite in that fight against Dequan Townsend, and he proved his worth. He really did. In the second round, knocked him out. And, that gave him the start we all wanted to see for his UFC tenure. And then, obviously, Soriano came along and put a stop to that. But Todorovic, he's been dominating for a while. I mean, been prior to the UFC, cleaned up the European regional scene, 10-0. And only one of them fights going the distance. So again, as Matt mentioned, with a guy like Rodrigues, he going the distance. I mean, this could be a great underplay. Todorovic has got vicious ground and pound. He's got power in both hands. He's also got great trips and takedown offense and defense. Strong hips from a Taekwondo background. I think he's a black belt in Taekwondo actually. When he's the grappling aggressor, these fights end and they end fast, either by submission or ground and pound. And he's patient on the feet, great counter striking. He's throwing 3 or 4 punches at a time behind them combinations. He's not going to be one of them guys who sits back, on singular strikes. And again, that the Soriano fight is a bit haunting. I did have a bet on that, I think, or it was in a parlay. I just didn't expect them power strikes to be so much of a problem for Dusko, and I think Soriano is another prospect we should be looking out for, because those strikes were heavy, real heavy. But we can see that just as a learning curve for Todorovic. Before the knockout, Todorovic is complicated to hit. Now this is something, because I've seen people say that his striking defense is bad, but prior to Soriano, not many people can hit him. He's got this fluid movement on the feet with this poised calmness, and I think that's the reason behind his 10-1 record. Before that knockout, Soriano was punching air. People need to go back and watch that fight. The guy was punching air. He couldn't catch him. I mean, fair enough, he doesn't keep his hands up enough, but he's hard to hit. Now, with a guy that's hard to hit, that has power in both hands and great wrestling, it's hard for me to fade him in this position. I anticipate an overzealous Gregory Rodrigues just attempting to do what Soriano did, and I think this will backfire, as Soriano's power is obviously something special, and I don't think Gregory Rodrigues can emulate that. Todorovic has great grappling offense to match that well-versed striking output, and I think he's going to give the Brazilian debutant a lot of difficulty with the counter striking and pushing forward. Now, fellow newcomer to the UFC, Jordan Williams, he handled Rodrigues on Dana White Contender Series. And I don't believe for 1 minute that Todorovic isn't the more talented of them two. I mean, MMA math doesn't work out, but how dominant he was in that fight just leads me to believe, that Todorovic can do the exact same thing. Obviously, talent does not always translate with the different styles of MMA, but Todorovic is just a more well-rounded fighter. Effortless movement on the feet, which anybody can praise when watching his fight tape. And yeah, Rodrigues is debuting off of 2 first-round KOs, but look what happened last time it stepped up and he came onto Dana White Contender Series. He flopped, and for me, he's going to have to catch Todorovic. That's just going to be hard, and this is just way easier said than done. I think maybe, a takedown from the Serbian, some of that nasty ground and pound. Either way, I don't see him falling victim to consecutive knockouts after such a, prosperous beginning to his MMA career. So, yeah, for me, it's Todorovic, and again, inside the distance is highly likely in this one.
Beautiful. Well, again, if you guys do want to get in on this fight via BetOnline, Todorovic is -134 and Rodrigues is +114. Now let's move on to the next fight. We have welterweight Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Miguel Baeza. Also, Matt, if you want to talk about cool nicknames, Baeza's nickname is Caramel Thunder, and I think that's pretty gnarly. But via BetOnline
on my list, Lee. The first bullet on my list.
I knew it. I think it's such a cool nickname. But anyway, via BetOnline, Baeza is -116 and Ponzinibbio is -104. So Dave, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this next fight.
This is a God. It's a tough fight. It is a tough fight because everybody has been high, including myself, on Ponzinibbio. And it's a damn shame that he had to come across health issues during his prime years. He's now 34. But can we count him out after that 7-fight winning streak prior to this year? His return and his loss. It's tough, man. He's such a good striker. He's got a BJJ black belt we don't even see. He's an incredible kickboxer, which really, that's been the forefront of his career. 30 career fights and 15 of those ending by knockout. He's got perfect jabs. He's great at cage control. Rarely gives up the space required to affect the output by Lee in the last fight. Them low kicks come in hard and they're the perfect distraction from those devastating strikes. He uses them at perfect times, and God, it's tough, man. It's so good. He's great at pressuring and cutting off the cage, and it's hard to predict if Pons can return in 2021 the same fighter he was. When we focus on that Li Jingliang brawl, how can he return to the octagon after suffering a first-round knockout before the man who knocked him out? These turnarounds scare me. And look, I get it. I do get it. His long layoff is probably urging him to make up for lost time. And then he's came back and he's lost. And now it's like, oh, damn, I need to make up for lost time. But this is just not the way to do it, in my opinion. Jing Liang was landing the low kicks at a consistent rate. He was outperforming Ponzinibbio prior to the eventual knockout, and then the moment Pons wanted to step inside of Lee's range, it was lights out from the left hook, and I did not see that coming at all. I was heavy on Pons in that fight just because of his previous fights, and look, we should have been a lot more respectful of that layoff. Now, even the older Asian version of Pons looked fast versus Jing Liang. These medical issues worry me, but he certainly has the tools to finish this fight. I'm just extremely hesitant after watching the Leech have his way. How does a man remove ring rust without leaving the first round and landing less than 15 strikes? At this point, can Pons ever return to that impressive win streak that he had and a position in the top 10? I really don't know. But, fighting a stud like Miguel, Caramel Thunder Baeza is that is definitely ringing some alarm bells for me. Another BJJ black belt in Baeza, who he owns such a dangerous striking output to match that. He won't be the fighter with brute strength, but speed and precision are going to favor him in this fight. Under pressure, we saw him handle the likes of Hector Aldana, who was consistently headhunting Baeza. And since that fight, we watched the fights after that, and he has just continued to grow. The patience of Baeza is something I can appreciate. As we mentioned, Jing Liang's low kicks, that's reminding me of how the low kicks eventually ended Hector Aldana. We rarely see low kicks end a fight, but damn, Aldana could not handle any more of them. Much similar to that O'Malley perennial nerve shot. This is gonna be a great tactic for Baeza in this fight, in my opinion. Now, Baeza versus Matt Brown, the eagerness got the best of him. Matt Brown came real close to handing Baeza his first loss and career knockout in that first round, but again, We go back to the low kicks. They were money for Baeza in that fight. He just needs to ensure that Pons isn't ready to fire back. Now, for a guy like Baeza, these learning curves, they are important, especially when heading towards fighting such a heavy-handed and experienced guy like Pons.
Mm-hmm.
And following that flurry from Brown, it didn't take Baeza too long into the second round before them calf kicks and hooks ended the night for Brown. And then he got Takeshi Sato, Baeza again. He evolved that patience to a point where he was fighting backwards to begin with, and he was just reading Sato. He was reading the fight, and I love to see this. The striking of Sato was obviously playing on his mind, but he beautifully mixed up them kicks again, high and low kicks, and Sato's face, it was swelling up early. By the end of that second round, that patience we speak of Baeza, that really did pay off. He went from backing up, reading the fight, to then leading the pressure, landed a beautiful takedown, straight into back control, from the ground and pound into a rear naked choke, and then the rear naked choke switched to the head and arm choke, or arm triangle, whatever you want to call it, which then reminded everyone that our guy Baeza, from all of his beautiful striking output, he owns a BJJ black belt, and he is very dangerous with it too. Now, although I believe in Baeza's skills, we could be too eager to count out Ponzinibbio in this fight. I'm not sure. But looking for the unders is where I'm seeing the value, to be honest. Picking a side it's a bit risky because everyone is counting out Pons, and I see a lot of people counting him out just because of that Lee fight. But the under 2.5 I gave out earlier this week, I think it was minus 130 or in that region, minus 135. I think it's a good shout. Both men, they hold a lot of fight-ending experience, if anything. And yeah, it's rough to back Baeza because we've lost all that value. He opened at plus 120 and I think he's the favorite now, right? Baeza, has he gone up now? Is he 130 around that region or something?
He's minus 116 right now.
116. Well, even still, plus 120 to minus 116, it's not really the best position to be in. Whereas the under, we don't have to worry about Pons coming out and proving us all wrong and showing us what he's about. And we can also rely on Baeza impressing us for another time. So it's the under for me in this fight, really. The under 2.5. Under 1.5, obviously, you're going to get more value, but a lot of Baeza's finishes have came in the second round. So you'd hate to be on the under and then, you know, that 2 minute 30 mark is surpassed in the second round, and then 20 seconds later he gets the finish. That's the worst feeling. So I think under 2.5 is a safe play for me.
All right, beautiful. Yeah, Bet Online, we have the under and over 1.5, and the under 1.5 is plus 131. So everyone's hitting the over 1.5. It's at minus 161 right now. But how about you, Matt? What is your breakdown and pick for this fight?
Well, let's talk about tendency really quick because my doorbell is ringing. I'm going to go really quickly. I'm going with Baeza. I'm going with the under. When you take a look at the tendency, it's Baeza and the under. I will be back in 20 seconds because I'm the only one here.
Okay, well, there we have it. So it'd be Baeza. Again, if you guys want to get on this fight via BetOnline, Baeza is minus 116 and Ponzinibbio is minus 104. You guys can also check out the MMA props if you want, because I was just looking at it, and it's to go the distance. No is favored at minus 175, and yes is plus 145. But fighter to win inside the distance, Baeza plus 135. There's some value right there if you like that. But let's move on to the next fight. We have middleweight. Oh wow, I have not seen this name in so long. Dolidze versus Laureano Staropoli via BetOnline. I cannot find their name. Staropoli is plus 116 and Dolidze is minus 136. So, Dave, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this fight.
Yeah, we can give some doorbell advice. I do say that ring cams, they are a great investment. You can answer your door from anywhere you are. You can take your phone with you. You can be miles away from your house and speak to the person that's knocking at your door.
They need to sponsor you. Dave.
No, but first off, how does this fight tell me, rank or make it higher on the card than any of the fights we have previously mentioned.
Especially the Tom Breese fight. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, it's whatever. Okay, Dolidze should win this fight. Fighting a late replacement in Staropoli, who is also moving up a division. And in reality, I probably would have sided with Alessio Di Chirico hadn't he pulled out of this fight. But Dolidze should dominate this one. I think he's got himself an easier fight. He is Georgian after all. We know how well them fighters have been performing of recent. Split decision win versus John Allen should have been a unanimous win. Can somebody please show me any part of that fight where Dolidze lost? I don't get it. These damn judges, they're so annoying. And again, versus Trevin Giles, I thought he was screwed out of a decision victory. Dolidze, he was bullying guys on the regional scene, knockout after knockout. And that did continue in the UFC momentarily with a first round finish over Kadis Ibragimov. But then the last two decision fights weren't as significant. But maybe we can give him a pass. The wrestling offense at Dolidze should be a problem for Staropoli in this one. And in the striking area, he's got some great teep kicks, mixes those up with some karate-style kicks. And from that southpaw position, he has got some lethal high kicks. He's a former world grappling champion. He does naturally move to the grappling offense, and I think that's just by default. When you're a long life grappler, I think it's just there, and it's just going to happen. It's what he knows best, I guess, and he's damn good at it. For his ability to grapple, you wouldn't recognize it with so many stoppages via strikes on his record. But again, that was him bullying guys on the regional prior. I don't want to count Dolidze out just yet, even though he's shown a couple of questionable bad traits. I don't think he's got the best cardio. But I think this fight should be a simple win for him. Staropoli is coming off a 2-fight losing streak in the division below. I'm not sure a short notice contest at middleweight can significantly favor Staropoli in any way. His speed has been a highlight for me, and his durability is also another highlight. Some of those shots that he ate from Muslim Salikov would have been fight-ending for most people, but Staropoli ate them with pride. Now, that's what impresses me about Staropoli is his durability. So maybe an over in this one. But in terms of the W, Dolidze can just grapple him and hold him there and lay him down. Look, we've seen. Did you know what? We've seen Staropoli get to his feet on a few occasions. So obviously he can get to his feet, but he hasn't been fighting world grappling champions. Dirty Bird Tim Means is a vet. He's a real G, but that was just a meh performance. I can't really find a way to support Staropoli in this one. -145 on Dolidze taking, the short notice opponent who's significantly smaller. That's a bookable play for me, and I'm going to side with the Georgian in taking the W this weekend.
Beautiful. Well, how about you, Matt? What is your breakdown and pick for this fight?
Yeah, both of these guys coming off with losses. For Dolidze, it's his first loss. The 8-fight winning streak is an interesting thing, but we see that in a lot of young fighters. They start off on a roll, then they step up to the big time, and then get their decades ruined. But I was going to talk about tendencies in the last fight before a FedEx guy showed up to my door. But in this fight, when we take a look at tendencies, Dolidze's first 3 fights were ended in first-round submission. The next 4 fights were 3 TKOs and a knockout, and 3 stoppages and 1 decision. For Staropoli, he went to the decision 3 times, got a loss. Both of these guys are coming off of decision losses. Both of them coming off of extended fight streaks into losing. Also for Staropoli, fun fact, I don't know if this will help in the fight, but he's undefeated against guys named Sebastian. He's 3-0 against guys named Sebastian. That all happened in a row. But I like the over for this fight. I know a couple of people in the chat, Mr. Villegas in the chat was talking about this fight in the 2.5 over. I like the over in this fight. because both of these guys are coming off decisions. I think they're going to be a lot smarter in this fight, which means they're going to take their time and they're not going to rush. But yet again, for Staropoli, he's knocked out 5 opponents, so we can see this one ending in 45 seconds. It's up in the air. I'm not picking anybody. I'm just taking the over.
All right. Well, via Bet Online, the over 2.5 is favored at -180. The under is under 2.5 is +150. But if you guys want to get in on the fighters, again, via Bet Online, Dolidze is -136 and Staropoli is +116. Now let's move on to the co-main. And Matt, you're going to be so happy for this co-main and main because we got big boy fights. So let's get into the co-main. We have heavyweight Walt Harris versus Marcin Tybura. Via Bet Online, Tybura is -175 and Harris is +150. Matt, I will begin with you for your breakdown and pick for the co-main.
Yay! Big guy fights. Big guy fight. This one's a hard one to pick. We've got Walt Harris coming off of 2 straight losses, but 2 straight TKO losses against Alexander Volkov and Overeem. So those are some pretty tough opponents to go up against. His last win was in 2019 against Alexei Oleinik. Has never lost 2 fights in a row in his career up until this point. So we really don't know how he'll be able to bounce back from this. This is a big question mark for Walt Harris, a guy we're all rooting for because of the tragedy he and his family dealt with a couple of years ago. He may not have that chin anymore. He's been knocked out 4 times. He's had a disqualification loss, and the deeper it goes into the fight, he loses. Every time he's been to the scorecards professionally, he's lost. And then you look at Marcin Tybura. He's 7-2 when it comes to decisions, but his last 3 losses were by knockout and TKO, and Walt Harris has knocked out 13 human beings in his professional career. By the way, that's all of his wins. So it really is a toss-up. I like a finish in this fight. You know what? I'm leaning towards Walt Harris because you take a look at quality of opponent. Tybura's got 4 straight wins, 1 TKO, and 3 decisions. That TKO was against Greg Hardy. Praise be for that one. But it is Greg Hardy, and he should be fighting Glass Joes in the LFA instead of fighting in UFC co-main events. So take that for what you will. That is my controversial statement of the show, brought to you by my crippling anxiety. But I like Walt Harris here. I like the finish. I think this one goes a little deeper into the fight. I think Harris is going to get in trouble early, but he's going to find a way to get out of it, and I think he's going to be able to manage a stoppage here.
All right, I'll just read the total for you. The over 1.5 is -175 right now, so that's you guys can get in on that if you want. But how about you, Dave? What is your breakdown and pick for the co-main?
Here's my take. Outside of the first round, Walt Harris has been useless. And it's kind of evident that he has cardio issues and he never seems to fix them. And this hasn't seemed to change forever. 7 years in the UFC, age 37. It's difficult to watch Harris become so simple to defeat. He is fast and he's got heavy hands. Against the likes of Andrei Arlovski, Sergey Spivak, Alexei Oleinik, great. I applaud him. I think I even took Walt Harris against Overeem and Volkov. I think I had him in both them fights, but damn. Overeem and Volkov, all they had to do was survive. It was simple to beat. It's simple to beat Harris. Survive his early onslaught. Survive that first round, because if you can do that, he gets very tired. And I think we can look at Marcin Tybura as a progressing fighter. And I've been on the opposite end of Tybura. I've faded him a lot and I haven't paid much attention to him. And I feel like he's progressing, whereas Harris is kind of regressing, age 37 now. And, as I say, I've never been heavy on Tybura personally, but at this point, how can we continue to deny him and the 4-fight win streak that he's riding? He slumps a guy in Greg Hardy, who owns a similar threat to Harris with his hands. Now, obviously, Harris has got way more experience and is without a doubt the more technical striker than Hardy. And Harris would probably get rid of Hardy within the first couple of minutes. But as we mentioned, outside of them first 5 minutes, I think Harris might struggle to cause much damage, if any at all. Harris has proved wrestling defense on occasions, sure, but Tybura has utilized his wrestling skill set throughout the majority of his career. Now, the question looming over this fight for me, can Harris catch Tybura early, or can Tybura out-cardio Harris and make this his kind of fight? For me, I just can't continue to undervalue Marcin Tybura. I don't even remember a time where I've been interested in betting on a Marcin Tybura fight. And, you know, the beatdown of a strong, young, powerful, strapping guy in Greg Hardy, that was something that I didn't expect, even though, you know, Matt did mention Greg Hardy's not the best of fighters, but still. And it's rarely mentioned that Tybura, he owns a BJJ black belt. He used to train with Jackson Wink. He then moved to Syndicate MMA. Now he resides back in his native land of Poland at Ankos MMA. So he has been gathering that experience through these fights. Through his 4-fight win streak, he has been gaining that experience. That gym experience is there, whilst gaining that UFC experience, which is kind of grown rapidly since his debut in 2016. He's barely taken time off. He's always been an active fighter. And everything for me right now is pointing towards a Marcin Tybura victory. Now, with all of that said, this is the heavyweight division. It is unforgiving. There's a reason why it's Matt's favorite division. I can see Walt Harris storming Tybura in the first round, walking him down and walking out with the KO win. But do I think that is the most likely outcome? No, I don't. I think we'll see Harris swinging for the fences. Tybura is going to weather that storm, utilize. He's got some great clinch work. He's going to take Harris down and either put an end to the misery for Harris inside the distance, round 2 or 3, or take the unanimous decision. And given Harris's record of going the distance, I'd side with the former of those outcomes. And I think we'll see Tybura lace up some ground and pound, or maybe even a rear naked choke or an arm triangle once Walt Harris is drained and his gas tank has left him. So yeah, perhaps one of the first times I'm ever leaning with Marcin Tybura, but as I say, I can't keep undervaluing this guy because he continues to prove me wrong. And Walt Harris in his late 30s, I just can't find a way unless it's within those first 5 minutes, and that's a big ask because a fight is 15 minutes, not 5. So yeah, it's Marcin Tybura for me.
All right, beautiful. Well, if you guys want to get in on this fight via BetOnline, Tybura is -175 and Walt Harris is +150. Now let's get to the main event. We have heavyweight Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Augusto Sakai. Honestly, I'm actually really excited for this fight because I really like Augusto Sakai. But I want to hear what you guys have to say. So, Dave, I'm going to continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this main event.
Yeah, to be honest, these two fights at the top of the card, they are probably the two of the most difficult to predict, in my opinion. I was a guy who was real heavy on Rozenstruik, and you know what? I still kind of am. I can't discredit this man for losing, to Francis Ngannou. Like, how can anybody discredit a man for losing to that monster? And then another guy who I respect highly, Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane was just able to keep Rozenstruik away. He didn't give Rozenstruik what Rozenstruik likes, and that's a man to move forward and give him the chance to land those counter strikes. Now, Rozenstruik he was, prior to MMA, he was a 7 or 8 time champion in kickboxing and Muay Thai. He had over 80 fights on his record, 50 plus of those ending by knockout. That success in kickboxing and Muay Thai, that led him straight into MMA. And since 2017, he has amassed that 9-2 record, and again, 8 of those fights ending due to that crazy power that he has. Now, Augusto Sakai, he's been a professional for the best part of a decade, and finding information on Sakai's personal life or his early upbringing and training it is quite scarce. But he is a youngster of this heavyweight division, even aged 30. We could see this guy go on for another 10 years, and he's been around the block too. He was a former Bellator competitor, but he found his home in his UFC. He has got a 4-1 record since his arrival, and after that loss to Alistair Overeem, he is obviously going to be, looking to get back on track and taking a guy on Rozenstruik. I've got to say fair play to him. He hasn't taken some bomb. He hasn't wanted to go down them rankings and go for a lesser opposition. Now, his wins, Chase Sherman, Andrei Arlovski, Marcin Tybura, who's fighting before him, and Blagoy Ivanov, they're not the highest level of opposition. And to be fair, in that Overeem fight, it did kind of make me question how far can Sakai go in this UFC heavyweight division. You see, he's got a similar tendency to Rozenstruik, where these guys can be calm and read situations. I don't think we're going to see these two big boys come out here and start swinging for the fences, especially with the power. I think there's going to be a lot of respect. The Brazilian, he has got some great fundamental striking, but the problem is when you look at certain fights, especially the Andrei Arlovski fight, he walks into punches too, and that's scary. That is very scary when you're fighting a guy like Rozenstruik. So it's tough for me to see a clear path for Sakai. Obviously, we're talking about the heavyweight division. We're talking about men that are 230 pounds and up. So the knockout, that's always going to be there for any heavyweight contender. It's just, unless Sakai has gave himself some incredible wrestling offense, which, that would be the most idealistic game plan for a guy like Rozenstruik. I can't see him winning this fight, because he's gonna have to come to Rozenstruik at some point. He's gonna either get agitated, and between the two, I think the patience will wear thin for Sakai, and he's not gonna want to sit back. I think he will have, between the two, he will definitely have the higher output. So actually, I take that back. If Sakai can go the distance, there's a great chance that he will have a higher output. But that step back left hook from Rozenstruik is a lot, and he barely touches guys, and they just flop. And look, this isn't Ngannou. This is Augusto Sakai, and this is a very winnable fight for Rozenstruik. And that kickboxing experience, that's right in your face when you see him mixing up the low kicks, and that's just a distraction for me to land those heavy hands. Rozenstruik is such a calm fighter, but he will attack when you open up them angles for him. See, the game plan for Rozenstruik is just do what he does best. I don't want him to come out there and start throwing loads of output to go for a decision, because that's not how he's won fights in his career. He's won fights by remaining calm and waiting and reading the moments. Now, as I say, that his output does has a tendency to be low, and if he doesn't find the finish, Sakai could walk away with a decision. But how is Sakai gonna handle moving forward? He's not gonna be able to be the laid back guy in this fight where we've seen him in previous fights. What game plan does he have that just won't be scary, in my opinion? Because that power of Rozenstruik is going to put you out if you're going to try and put it on him, like we've seen Sakai do in the past with other fighters. For the lack of output from Rozenstruik, we know that the power is going to follow him through all 5 rounds. Look at the Overeem fight. He was able to lose. Well, he was heading to a loss on the judges' scorecards, but because of his calmness, because of his great cardio, he's got that power right up to all 25 minutes of that fight. Rozenstruik is going to be a threat to Augusto Sakai. It's going to be power, counter strikes, speed, and cardio, all favouring Rozenstruik, in my opinion. Now for Sakai, I'd give him, you know, the output and maybe length. He's got longer arms, which, you know, that fighting at distance, that was good for Cyril Gane, and maybe he can try emulate Gane, but I don't fancy putting my money behind Sakai having the ability to win a decision over Rozenstruik. So yeah, for me, it's Biggie Boy. I think Biggie Boy is going to win. On one of my articles, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but I also was looking at the over. The over, I think it's a great play. Over 1.5 was at a real good price, which is probably not now as we're heading.
It's minus 215 now. The over 1.5. Yeah.
Yeah. See, even it opened at about 140, the over 1.5, and that was an absolute steal in my opinion. As you can see, other people have thought the same because, as I mentioned earlier, we do have heavyweights, of course. Someone can get knocked out real quick, but between these two fighters, they are patient. They don't rush. Much like in our last breakdown with Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt. You notice the same thing. These guys are going to have respect for each other, and they're patient, and they're going to want to read fights and read the situation. And I see this exact same thing happening here with Sakai and Rozenstruik. So the over 1.5 is a great play. Obviously, if you miss the value, I wouldn't even argue, and you know, that's something you could parlay up. The over 2.5, that does get a little riskier. Obviously, it is the heavyweights, but I feel like this is Rozenstruik for me, and I can't fade him in this position.
Yeah, I was just looking at the over 2.5 rounds. It's at minus 105 now via Bet Online. The under 2.5 is minus 125. So, but how about you, Matt? What is your breakdown and pick for the main event?
I gotta look at common opponents here, and Augusto Sakai, you know, got by Reem, and even though it was in the 5th round, it might have been considered a walk-off for over Reem. Then you take a look at Rozenstruik, and well, he got over Reem. He also got Andrei Arlovsky, Alan Crowder, Junior Albini, and Junior Dos Santos. And yeah, Ngannou and Gagne, you know, whatever, however you pronounce his name, I don't want to get it wrong or be slagged for not getting it right. I'm just covering my bases. But for Rozenstruik, he's a dangerous dude. He's gone past the 1st round only 5 times in his career. Like, that's frightening. That is a frightening thing. And then you take a look at Sakai, and that ended he had a 6-fight winning streak, but his biggest win was against Marcin Tybura and Andrei Arlovsky. So you got two common opponents where Rozenstruik is 2-0, and Sakai is a 1-1. His last loss was a split decision loss against Czech Congo back in 2017, and you can pull from that what you want to pull from that. That's also 4 years ago. So Sakai has obviously gotten better, but we don't know if he's in the elite class of heavyweight where he would be going up against an Ngannou. I like Rozenstruik in this. I like this being a finish. I don't know if it goes all 5 rounds, but both of these guys have something to prove, especially with big losses on their records. I like Rozenstruik in this. I like Biggie Boy in this. We need more powerhouses in the heavyweight division while John Jones plots whatever he's doing with the guy who may or may not have stolen money from Golden Boy. So we've got more questions in this division than answers, and I would like to see a little bit more of some top challengers. So this is what I'd like to see, a rematch between Rozenstruik and Ngannou at some point. So I'm putting my backing behind Rozenstruik.
All right, beautiful. If you guys want to get on this fight, again, via Bet Online, Rozenstruik is minus 115 and Sakai is minus 105. Now, that is all that we have for the entire main card breakdown. Let's just jump into our prelims. Matt, I'll begin with you. Do you have a top prelim fight that you're looking out for?
All right, so it can obviously be Montana De La Rosa and Ariana Lipski, but I'm going to go to my heart, my soul. Large dudes punching each other in the face. And for me, it's Tanner Bozier and his haircut that makes mine seem like a GQ cover, and Alir Latifi, because I love saying Alir Latifi. You've got 2 guys here with, big dudes, big brawlers. You've got a really great undercard this show, to be serious. You've got Francisco Trinaldo in action. You've got Makwan Amirkhani back in the card. Some really solid fights on the main undercard. It's only the main prelims. There's only main prelims. But it's a good card all around, and I'm really looking at these top 3 fights as the ones to really shock people and probably be better than some of the main card fights we talked about.
Yeah, honestly, I was looking at the prelims and I was thinking, why isn't this fight on the main card? But I don't know. It's a messy card, but either way, it'll be fun. But how about you, Dave? What is your top prelim fight that you're looking out for?
This is tough for me because, as you guys mentioned, these prelims, I love them. And I like Latifi in a dog position. Watching Latifi slam Derek Lewis to the canvas, you think he's not going to be able to do that against a guy at Tanner Baeza, basically half the size of Derek Lewis. Jordan Levitt, Muslim Salikov. In fact, going back to the false narrative that, you know, the British boys suck at wrestling, Mason Jones, he lost his debut fight, but boy, did he prove his worth at the same time. And now Mason Jones is coming in as a heavy favorite against Alan Patrick, and he's coming in as that favorite for a good reason, for a real good reason. Is quite similar to Tom Breese, actually, and I think my British boys are going to do well this weekend. I think it's going to be a 2-0 for Mason Jones and Tom Breese. I think them two have got this in the bag. But one of my favorite is probably Jordan Levitt. His wrestling and his jiu-jitsu is very impressive, and he's fighting a guy in Claudio Puelles who is also a hot prospect, but I just think Jordan Levitt's going to have his number. The only way for Puelles to win this is to consistently sprawl the takedowns and defend the takedowns and keep the fight standing, which I just don't think he's going to be able to do. I think Jordan Levitt's gonna have this one in the bag. So my favorite prelim fight is Jordan Levitt, especially with the price opening up at -300, and now you can get -191 at Bet Online. That's the reverse values coming there. The bookie gave Levitt -300, so, and now we can get 191. Yes, please. And then, you know, Muslim Salikov is just Muslim Salikov, Trinaldo. It could be fight of the night. It really could be fight of the night. Muslim Salikov spinning attacks. I think he's one of the only guys to have 4 or 5 knockouts on his record via spinning attack. Like, who else does that? Like Muslim Salikov and Jordan Levitt for the first 2 fights of the night. This is a real good preliminary card, and I'm real excited for this one.
All right. Well, let's move on to our lock of the card segment, the segment that Dave dislikes the most. So I will ask you first, Dave, what is your potential lock on the card?
Tom Breese.
I think
Antonio Arroyo is just not good enough to hang with Tom Breese, and I wouldn't even expect to see Arroyo hanging around the UFC roster for long, really. I don't see him as a future, you know, top 20 or even top 30 fighter. I think this is an easy comeback for Tom Breese, perfectly matched fight for him. And yeah, he lives around the corner from me, but it's skill set. It's all to do with skill set, and I think Tom Breese is going to come out and dust Arroyo inside the distance.
Yeah, again, it makes me so happy hearing you say that. Actually, I'm all over Tom Breese this weekend. You guys can check out my top UFC picks and also my picks article for that. But Matt, what is your potential lock on the card for this Saturday?
Well, I'm going with Tom Breese too. There's too many outliers on this card for me to lock on anything, but Breese is the one that's the most secure in terms of opponents. He's got the best possible matchup. I got to go with Tommy B here.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Now let's just wrap up real quick. I saw a question in the chat for us from Justin Viegas. If you guys may please answer underdogs or even a winner you don't talk about on your fight chart. You could see winning after the show, mostly an underdog. So overall, what is your best underdog play for this card? And I can start with Dave.
Probably Latifi. Just to the price, I think it's a bit off. I've seen Latifi perform well against OSP, do great against Derek Lewis in a fight where it could have gone either way, and I wouldn't have been mad. I'm not going to argue that Derek Lewis won that fight via robbery because he didn't. But if the judges would have gave that to Latifi, I wouldn't be angry at that. And he's coming in at around my plus 160 or something like that. I think that price may have dropped a little bit. I can't actually remember, but in terms of dogs, yeah, it's got to be Latifi. And then, I mean, Youssef Zalal is not the worst underdog either. There's a few, actually. Kamala Kirk versus Makwan Amirkhani. Amirkhani is a good all-rounder, but whenever that guy steps up to a real fighter, he gets beat up. And seeing him near minus 200 makes me worry. Seeing Sean Woodson near minus 200, that makes me worry. So yeah, there's a few underdogs that you could look into a bit more and potentially throw a little half unit on.
Yeah. No, Latifi is plus 160 at Bet Online, but I was actually looking into Zalal like a couple days ago, and it came to the point where I'm just not even touching the fight. So, but Youssef Zalal is the underdog at plus 148. Woodson is minus 173, but again, I'm not touching this fight for many reasons. But how about you, Matt? Do you have an underdog play for this fight?
Yeah, I gotta go Latifi too. That Walt, not only with the Derek Lewis stuff, there's just too many questions on this card for me to kind of put my money or put my backing behind a lot of fighters, especially underdogs. A lot of these fights are toss-ups. But in regard to that, I'm going to go because Tanner Bozier's a hoss, but Latifi's faced some tougher competition and went to the distance. You know, he fought Derek Lewis and somehow walked out somewhat alive. So I gotta put my backing on Latifi. He's a strong dude, someone who can throw some people around. And I like saying his name. It comes down to something as simple as that. That is why I am an expert in the world of mixed martial arts, because I am a jovial human being.
Beautiful. And then Joseph Gomez asks, no picks today, Lee. No, I am saving it in my other videos, so be sure to check out my UFC picks video and also my top UFC picks article at sbrpicks.com/UFC. You can also find all of Dave's UFC content at sbrpicks.com/UFC as well. If you're not following the guys on Twitter, you should definitely give them a follow. You should follow Matt at MRyan Consulting and Dave at DManion_. While you're at it, just give SBR a follow at SBR Sports Picks. And there you guys have it. That is our entire main card breakdown. Again, check out all of our content. If you need more help, hit us up on Twitter if you have any questions. And I wish you all the best of luck for this weekend. And I'll see you next week.
Bye.